We are live, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a long time coming for the boys here behind the bench. A legend in Sudbury sports. This person was born in Kapuskasing, Ontario, and has been covering Sudbury local sports now for 17 years. A former SPAD grad, no big deal. His talents landed him scorekeeping jobs at the men's gold medal hockey final and women's bronze medal game at the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, and another appearance at the 2018 Winter Olympics at Pyeongchang, and a whole slew of other opportunities that he has been a part of. We can't wait to dive into them. You may know him as a Sudbury sports guy, and it is our honor to welcome Randy Pascal to the Behind the Bench podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. This has been fun. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, we're really excited. It's been a long time coming. So what are you up to right now, Randy, in your summer months?
So a couple of things. Obviously, still doing a lot of writing. A lot of more of the writing I've done over the course of the past year has obviously been sort of nostalgic in nature. So it lends itself really well to people like your father, Alex, and at that age group, right? A lot of feature stories. And then the other one that has been kind of exciting, and this will hopefully see the benefit of this down the road, is I do work with a group called SportLink, which is a local sport council, and we worked out about a year ago. We started into a partnership agreement with the city aimed at bringing more sport tourism events to Sudbury. So to be a little bit more proactive in terms of chasing down, possible provincial championships, Officer Championship, nationals, those sort of things, and to really start a conversation with those governing bodies to find out what does Sudbury need to do to better position itself? Like, where should we be spending our money in terms of venue enhancement? What sports are well positioned? What could we host? What would people be willing to come up for versus, it's good. Where maybe they might want to stay in the GTA or that area. So that's been really has been a lot of fun working on that as well.
Oh, good stuff. I like that. I like that a lot, Randy. I'm excited to see some updates from that. Sudbury's dying for some venues, some big things happening here. And we'll definitely dive into that. My question to you, Randy, is, you do a lot of interviewing in your time as a journalist. When's the last time you've been interviewed by some other people?
Well, I've definitely done some before. So certainly when the one that sticks out to me, and it was probably because he did such a great job with the story, and I can appreciate it being on the other side of it, right? Doing so much of the writing. Ben Leeson interviewed me from the Sudbury Star when I found out I would be going to Pyeongchang. And it's interesting because for anybody who's ever done interviews, probably the biggest challenge is you want to really try and capture the story of the person, especially as that person sees it, right? The stuff that's important to them, you really want to highlight in the story. So you really do have to listen intently to where they, when they get really excited when they're storytelling. He absolutely nailed it. I mean, the lead he had was, it's kind of one of those ones you read it and you go, wow, I like that. I wouldn't have thought of it, but I really liked it. So that was probably the last ones. Now we're talking, 3 to 4 years ago. I've done a lot of some sort of things similar to this, certainly class presentations. I've done a lot of those sort of things. Those aren't interviews per se, but it's sharing a little bit of information.
Right. Yeah. Love it. Well,
he gave us a presentation for JP's class. I'm not sure if you remember that, but
that's right. That's right. Absolutely. It was fantastic. One of my favorite guests we've had in that class. So that was a blast.
You say that to all the guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No way, Randy. No way, Randy. You stand above the rest.
No. Come on. I can't hold a candle to Nick Foligno for God. I defer it.
No. You watch, Randy. You watch this. This one's gonna be a good one. But and Ben Leeson, we had him on our 8th episode, I believe, of this podcast. He's awesome, guys. So it's awesome. We're getting back into the Sudbury journalism. Yeah.
Well, I should say you guys do a great job with this. I love the feel to it. I love watching them. It's such an interesting set. It's so it's something that it's a little different than what I grew up with, right? So it's it's really neat to kind of look back or to look at something and go, okay, that's kind of the new wave of where sport journalism is heading, and you guys. The ability to kind of keep it light and get to the heart of what these people want to talk about. Kudos to you guys because you do a great job of bringing it out. So keep up the good work,
Randy.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
It's all Alex. I'm just here for the ride. But.
No. Team effort, baby. Team effort.
Randy, the first question I have for you is we usually go back from the start of everyone's career when we have guests on. What got you started in sports journalism?
Actually, it's interesting. So I would say the start was probably more just in pure sports administration than it was journalism. And that really, there was a fellow long before your time, a fellow by the name of Gary Hall. We our era, we kind of grew up at the, and I'm sure you guys have heard about this, where playgrounds were the hub of everything, right? So everybody congregated there. That's where you played all of your sports and everything. And I happen to be our area in Rosemary Playground in New Sudbury. A lot of sports people that kind of grew up and blossomed out of that area. Many that are far, far better athletes and far more well known in terms of the administrative side of sport than I was. But it so happened one of the guys was a member of the Sudbury Minor Hockey Board at the time, and he had kind of caught wind of it. You know, this young guy around the neighborhood had this kind of love of doing stats at the time. And this is long before analytics. And so, he approached me. I was probably 13, 14 years old. And he approached me about helping out with Sudbury Minor Hockey. At the time, Sudbury Minor Hockey had 58 teams on their own, and they kept individual stats on every single player. So that was kind of what first got. Then from there, I started scorekeeping hockey. You know, as I'm getting all these score sheets coming through, I'm thinking, well, I'd much rather look at my own score sheets. They're much neater, and I can make sure they're really accurate and all that sort of thing. The journalism part really was kind of a side byproduct of that, and it really grew out of just doing nothing more than being. I was a sports editor for the school paper at my high school, so McDonald Cartier.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got to university, that became my SPAD sort of the internship. Well, it was a co-op, I guess, whatever they counted it for back then. A little different than what you guys experience now, but I ended up serving as sports editor for Lambda. And so, interesting side story. When I took sports administration, my best friend at the time was Ken Campbell, who writes for the Hockey News. It's quite controversial, or had written for the Hockey News, and then now is kind of doing his own thing. Very controversial, and we've certainly had many, many debates on a lot of different topics, as you can imagine. But Kenny was heading off we're exactly the same age. He was heading off to do journalism at Carleton University. And that was one of the things he said, you know, Randy, you got to come along with me. We'd have a blast. You know, we'd both be sports journalists. And I said, well, there's 4 boys in our family. I'm the oldest. I'm not sure mom and dad can, you know, that's a lot of money at that time to get 4 of us through university. So I'm going to stay in town at least to start off with. And Rob Falls, who's a Sportsnet guy, was working in town at the time. And he was the one who suggested sports admin. He said, you know, do you have any, how are your math skills, your commerce side of it? I said, I think I could probably handle it. He said, well, you might want to give this a shot. And of course, in the late 70s, early 80s, it was still relatively new. It wasn't as new as it was, in whatever, 72, 73, but it was still kind of gaining a name for itself. So that's kind of, I was probably more of a sports admin guy growing up, but then always had a love of reading sports stories and would kind of take my stats passion and then would turn that into, you know, media releases and stuff like that.
I love that. Yeah.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit more about that sports administration program, because obviously me and Alex are still in it. Like, what made you choose that program, Randy?
Well, as I say, it was probably the urging of Rob Falls initially. It's interesting because I think most SPAD students would probably admit that, you know, by the time they're into second or third year, the program may not be exactly what they envisioned it being, right? There's a lot of commerce, which a lot of people don't. They think, okay, no, I'm going into
just sports
program.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I actually really enjoyed that side of it. I found for us, it was core year was third year. I think it's now second year for you guys. I thrived in that. I just kept getting, you know, better and better as far as my marks and how engaged I was in it. And I kind of always envisioned doing a pure sports admin type job. So either working for one of the provincial sport governing bodies or not, like an executive director's position, maybe if I had a do-over, the one that I would love to do would be to work as a sports info person at an NCAA school. That would be my dream job, I think.
Yeah.
Other than what I do with SudburySports.com. But because that would combine both, right? I think it's got that side of it that you're keeping stats and the historical records that I appreciate, all that sort of thing. But then you also have the writing side, and you get to learn so much about people. And to me, that's probably out of journalism, the thing I most love is that every person is a story. You just have to learn how to tell it.
100%. Yeah. And so you talk about, coming out of SPAD, trying to find a job that way. You kind of took a step away, always kind of keeping sports in your back pocket, but you had to
Yeah.
and did some time in banking. So what was it like for you kind of transitioning out of university, and then you ended up moving to Kingston as well, raising a family there. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, it was really interesting. So I honestly, the first job in banking that I took, it was offered to me while I was still finishing fourth year. So in those days, a lot of the bigger companies used to come on campus and they would do a series of interviews. And so I was fortunate enough. I got a couple of offers from different banks and decided to take one of them. And really, to be honest, the main reason I took it was because I thought like salary level was pretty good. It seemed like a nice, solid professional job that you could kind of put on your resume. I had no intention of doing banking, probably beyond anywhere, maybe more than 5, 6, 7 years. It was going to be something I could kind of build on and then look at leapfrogging over into a world of sports.
Right.
Well, life gets in the way, right?
Yeah, for
all
sure.
of a sudden you're married, family starts coming along, and you're going, well, I'm not sure I have any really strong reason to leave banking for a number of years. And to be and to be frank, the fact is with sport, there is so much volunteerism that's available, right? So if you have an inkling in wanting to be involved in sport, just offer yourself up as a volunteer. There's any number of groups that'll snag you up in a heartbeat. So I was able to work a lot with fastball associations and hockey associations and leagues, and I do their stats, and I help out with when there was an event, when there was a big event in town. All of a sudden they say, well, hey, you're our go-to guy for results. Can you run the results room for the Ontario Summer Games? Well, yeah, I'd love to. That sounds like it'd be fascinating. So I think I was able to kind of merge both together because I had my sport fix, if you will, on the volunteer side. But I still had the banking offered the security. It was a nice job. It was enjoyable. I got to meet a lot of people. So kind of the best of both worlds. And it stayed that way for the better part of almost 20 years.
And 100%. And like I said before, you spend time in Kingston, you raise your family there. What made you decide to come back to Sudbury?
I'd always had a soft spot for Sudbury to start off. Even though I was born in Kapuskasing, my home is Sudbury, right? Yeah. And so from this, and I grew up in an era when Sudbury was hosting a gazillion things, and the sports community, everything was happening. New arenas were being built. Terry Fox Complex gets built. The Laurentian Stadium is going up. They're hosting the World Juniors. You've got all these. It was just this constant buzz of activity being involved in sport in Sudbury. So that always appealed to me. And in the back of my mind, I had always had kind of this semi-retirement gig that I thought, oh, it'd be fun to do like a little sports magazine, just to, when I'm retired, but just something to keep me busy and keep my foot in the door. And the second part of it was the fact that a fellow by the name of Joe McDonald, who's actually from North Bay, he and I had worked together in banking in Kingston. He ends up moving up to Sudbury. He's managing the Toronto Dominion branch out at the corner of LaSalle and Falconbridge. And he had an opening. A fellow by the name of Diego Favero, whose whole family's been involved in sports. Paul Favero's, I think Paul's older brother, if I'm not mistaken, he was heading off to another branch. This opening comes up, and they're trying to think of who might be good to fill it. And Joe said, "Well, I know Randy's, from Sudbury. He's still in Kingston. I've worked with him. Maybe we can approach him about coming up." So yeah, in '98. I ended up moving back home and ended up staying with the bank for about another 5 years after that.
Right, and you segued it perfect. 2004, Sudbury Sports comes alive. What was the decision for you to saying, all right, I want to do this thing, this little retirement gig that I was thinking about. Now I want to do it. So talk to us about that.
It's how some people will tell you that they had an aha moment.
Right.
I could tell you exactly where I was when the aha moment hit. So as we're going through the early 2000s, I'm still involved with sports. I'm still doing a lot of stuff on the sports statistics side. At the same time that's happening, there's this cool new thing coming out called the internet. And of course, we're debating, this thing's not going to last. It's going to be expensive. People are going to have to pay an arm and a leg to log in. This is like a giant, how are people going to find their way around? This is like an endless library, right? You're going to get lost. Anyways, as I'm doing my sports, the sports information side of things, there's a push on to start to get more of that information on the internet. Now, I'm not an IT guy. I'm not particularly strong in terms of my computer skills, but I'm blessed with two younger brothers that are both Waterloo computer grads.
There you
So
go.
I'm tapping into them and tapping into people that I knew. And there were some local contacts. And I'm saying, okay, how do I know what I want the stats system? I know what I want a sports page to look like for, the AAA hockey league or whatever.
Mhm.
How do I go about, how do you guys program this? What information do I need to give you? So we start going down that pathway. As I'm driving into work, I'm still with the bank at this point one day. So coming in from the valley, driving out towards Falcon Bridge Road, I'm driving by where Northeastern Public School is. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, this thought crosses my mind that says, that idea of doing that sports magazine, what if you simply took that concept and switched it over to the online platform?
Mm-hmm.
Is that doable? So I get to work, I call my brother, I said, is that something that even makes sense? And he says, oh my God, he says, makes sense. It's like your overhead costs decrease so much more. It's almost like nothing by comparison to do it. And then I start going through the possibilities. And I'm going, okay, I was worried before, if you do a monthly sports magazine, there's a chance you've got to write stories all through the month. Well,
Right.
by the time it comes out at the end of the month, there's going to be stuff that's dated. If I'm doing a feature on a Wolves player, God knows he could have been traded by the time the magazine comes out. And all of a sudden, okay, well, that story goes down. Crap that one, put it in the basket. So there were so many compelling reasons to look at taking the same concept that I had and simply moving it over to an online platform. Then, and the two guys that were instrumental in making it happen, Blaine Smith and Dave Makla, both guys that I'm sure you guys know well.
Yeah.
I took them separately, interestingly enough, took them both out to lunch and said, you guys are going to think I'm nuts. I'm thinking of a career move. I'm about 40 years old at the time. So I could have stayed with the bank and kind of played things out for another 10 or 15 years. But I said, this is something I'm really, this is something that I'm really keen about doing. I said, I just need to know, am I out of my mind thinking that this could, I could make a living doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. Both of them, without talking to one another, came back with exactly the same answer. They both basically said, look, do we think you're going to get rich off of it? Probably not. Could you make a living off of it? Absolutely. And would it allow you to do something that you absolutely love? No doubt about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was, you're going to wake up every morning just kind of, oh my God, I'm the luckiest person alive. I get to cover Sudbury Sports.
Right.
And that is like people say, Randy, no, you're blowing smoke, right? You're feeding us a lie. No, honestly, people that I've talked to when I do interviews, if they don't get that sense, there might be something wrong with them, because I really do feel that way. Like the more information I can gather, and that was kind of the starting point of it. And to be honest, my wife, God bless her, who's a registered nurse, said, okay, I tell you what, I will give you 2 years to see if this is viable or not. Mm-hmm. If within 2 years it's not, I'm sorry, you're working at Tim Hortons if you have to, but you're going to find you're not staying home and doing this and not making money. And I said, no, that's fair. And where I got really lucky was at the same time I was launching it, a lot of the other sports media were starting to kind of shrink in terms of local coverage. So I kind of hit the market at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. I'm getting out there and I'm suddenly getting calls from Sudbury Star and Northern Life. And I end up doing over 5 years of work with Eastlink. So because they were looking at it from the standpoint, we can't necessarily go out and hire somebody full-time to do it. But if Randy's going to be there anyways, could we not tap into him to get a report
100%.
from the high school football final, the Ringette championship, on and on and on.
100%. And you've covered head to toe sports and stuff. And honestly, if it wasn't for you with that page, and not many people would hear the stories that you've put out, and it's unbelievable. And obviously I could tell the passion right away, but what keeps you going now 17 years into it? What keeps you chasing, getting up every day and saying, I'm going out there and finding the next story?
Well, it's a great question, Alex, because it was one of my brother Terry, who's probably my strongest confidant in this. When I originally took the leap of faith, he said to me, he says, I understand you're going to be passionate to start off with, but the only concern I have is 5 years from now, does it start to become a little mundane? Do you start, because it's, and honestly, I would say two things that keep it fresh. One, absolutely the people. I mean, there's just if you're even the least bit creative, there's a never ending stream. I never thought I was going to get a chance to talk to Brian Savage's father. Like I've never met John Savage before. before. I
Right.
had no idea. But the moment that door opened, it was actually Cheryl, who Fabro, the daughter of the family, who was kind of said, you really need to talk. And then I still got, now they're saying, well, you need to talk to my mother's side of the family. They're all Hillmans, and they, two of the boys played NHL hockey, and they've
Right.
got a fascinating. This is the kind of thing that I guess in part, really keeps me going on it. And the other part is there's just so many people that are just so supportive of what I'm. So whether it's, you're talking in terms of, obviously you have to approach advertisers because you got to be able to, you guys, you're running into what you're doing. It's one thing to be super excited about this behind the bench podcasting. You should be. It's a great vehicle. But if it's still your time you're putting into it, and that's at some point, you say, okay, well, I again, I'm not looking to create the next Facebook, but I also, have to be smart about how I use my time. So the support of all the various people has been key. That's I can't say enough thank yous. To be able to do something where the bulk of what you do, people legitimately send you back a note after and say, love the story. Really, thank you so much. Right. I've got college people I haven't talked to in 20 years suddenly got a hold of me. That's, there's very few people that do something for a living where your feedback is almost 100% positive. Right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Right. So it's pretty. I won't say I never get like a nasty note or something that says, why haven't you covered our, you covered this school enough? Can you please come Llewellyn and send some love towards, St. Benedict's? How come you're not being, Camino's one of our guys. Why would you not love St. Benedict?
Because there's no talented athletes at that school, Randy. So. I'll get Politi and all those guys going. It's all good.
City Champs football, Tom. What are you talking about?
I'm sending Fermetto after him.
Good.
I love it.
Good.
I love it, man. Oh man, that's amazing. And like you said, the people. That's what we've noticed with this podcast too. Like, you really, there's no limit to the people that you can reach out to and talk to, and we've noticed that so far. It's been unbelievable. The stories we get to meet, the people we get to meet, never knew before. You absolutely nailed it on the head with that. My question to you is, and this is probably a tough one, you might get a lot, but what's the favorite Sudbury Sports story you've covered? If you have a top 3, if you have a Mount Rushmore too. Yeah.
I've got a few, and you're going to find this interesting because you would think with all of the great athletes that come through, all of the big moments, if not my favorite, one of the favorites was a playground hockey final. Okay, so picture this. It was their year, I believe it was their year-end tournament or the January tournament. It was one of those that they run every year. It's a Bantam final. So playground hockey, with all due respect to playground hockey, it's a notch below AAA hockey. It's a notch below AA. It's kind of open for, and it's where I would have played. It's where I did play, and it's, if I was born today, it's where I would play. It's for the masses, and it's great. And what it serves, it does well. So I'm at the Bantam final. The game ends up tied. So now they've got to go to a shootout. Okay. They went 11 shooters aside. Okay. The kid that scores the winning, you can imagine if playground hockey is this is the level of the player, I'm now into the 11th best player on that team. I swear the goalie, the reason the kid was able to score was because the goalie fell asleep between the time he picked up the puck and center ice. But to his credit, the kid makes this nifty little move. Well, he celebrated like there's no tomorrow. And so I thought, I got to go down and interview this kid, right? It was one of my most favorite interviews of my life because because he's got to be sitting there going, wait a sec, you're here covering what? Like, you don't have a life? Like, this is like final. What is wrong with you, mister? So that was one. And the other one I'll share with you really quickly. There was I try to be very conscious when I'm going out to cover games that I look for good matches, right? It's no fun covering a game that's 11-3 or anything like that. There's neither team wants to really talk to you after. No. Even the team that won is saying, but we weren't really challenged. So I'm out covering it. I think it was, I'm going to say Adam Hockey, because the player would have been about 10 years older. So I won't say his name. Cute, really cute kid. Anyways, at 10 years old, kids don't have much of a filter, right? They just, whatever comes into their mind, they're sharing with you.
100%.
So I'm talking to him about the matchup of the two teams, and I said, in his league, and the two teams are the second last place team and the bottom place team that I'm covering this time. And I said, you've played on this team for a couple of years. Do you guys have, do you have a team that you really like to play against? And he looks and he says, he says, Topper's Pizza. So that's the team we've just played. Topper's Pizza. He says, I don't know if you noticed, mister, but we're not very good, and they're not very good either. And he stops for a second. He says, it's kind of like watching Montreal and Toronto play in NHL hockey. And he's being dead serious. He's not, like, this is not for effect. He's not a Leaf hater or Montreal.
Oh,
He's just trying to make this guy understand that this is, these teams aren't very good.
my God. That is
That's
amazing.
hilarious.
That is
Those
amazing.
moments are, you package those up, Alex, and you keep those for the rest of your life.
100%. 100%.
kidding.
Oh, that is so good.
This is going to be a good segue here, Randy. So we go from playground hockey, Atom hockey, all the way to the 08. In 2008, you got approached to go to the Olympics in 2010. From what you were telling me and from what you sent us is that you got approached by a phone call. Like, how did that all go down that, you were about to go to the Olympics in 2010?
Yeah. So full disclosure, would have never in a million years even thought of applying for a position as a scorekeeper at the Olympics. Not because I didn't believe I could do it and do it well. That part was a given. I just assumed that, look, they've got NHL, whatever number of NHL teams. The Olympics are in Vancouver. I'm in Sudbury. Really don't have, I didn't have any connections out there or anything like that. So I would suggest to you, first of all, part of it is just good, like right place, right time, somebody up above looking over you and saying, Randy, you if you can find something crazily wonderful about an Atom hockey game or a Bantam playground final, we got to reward you somehow. So
For sure.
yeah, lo and behold, I don't, you have to get Danny McCord. Have you had Danny McCord on your podcast?
No, not yet.
Okay, you have to get Danny on. Oh my God,
Okay.
he's one of the most colorful here. I will give you this.
Beautiful.
Danny would, you'll have a hard time cutting him off after an hour. He's wonderful. So Danny McCourt was an NHL official for about 20 years or so. Dale McCourt's older or younger brother. Dale was a quite accomplished hockey player. Danny ends up retiring from the NHL, and they immediately hire him back on to basically be somebody who would go across Canada and would mentor junior hockey officials that they've identified as having NHL potential, which makes sense because it kind of sort of a parallel pathway to what they do with players, right?
Right.
So Danny is sitting in late 2008. He's sitting in the press box in Vancouver watching a game. He's watching the officials. By chance, sheer luck, the lady next to him has a business card out and it's got the Olympic symbol on it. Now, if you've ever met Danny, Danny is as outgoing and as talkative as they come. There's no way he's not having a conversation with this lady. Turns out the lady's name is Barbara Byrne, and she was the woman who was in charge of men's and women's hockey at the Vancouver Olympics. They get talking about a bunch of different things. Danny's doing officiating. During the course of the conversation, she mentions, one area where we're really struggling to find volunteers is the whole area of off-ice officials. So scorekeepers, stats people, penalty box attendants, there's 25 that actually work in Olympic game. 20,
Wow.
It's a crew of 25 for one game. Danny says, geez, that's funny. I got a couple of guys in Sudbury. So myself and Todd Guthrie says, they're really good at it. Like they're among the best in the OHL without a doubt. And you can talk to people there and ask them. And he says, well, if you want to approach them, here's the gig. It's the Olympics. So there'll be an appeal,
100%.
but you're volunteering your time. You got to find your way out there and you have to find accommodations. So you can understand where not everybody can leave work for 2 weeks and take time. I happen to be blessed doing something, I could grab my laptop. Hey, I can write stories in Vancouver.
For sure.
I've written stories all over the place. So that kind of opened the door for it. From there, it was interesting because even then when we applied, we really honestly didn't know, we knew that a lot of people would be applying. We had no idea whether we would get selected or not. Certainly having Danny on board helped, and having score kept probably at that point somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 games really helped, right? Because there wasn't a lot in terms of penalty situations. There really wasn't a lot they were going to throw out. They could have a bench clearing brawl, and I go, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Sudbury Cubs 101 like this.
Yeah.
This was
100%.
before the days when Brian Savage played in Sudbury Cubs, if you go back to Phil Faldine and Steve Lowe's on those guys, it was for every third game there was going to be 7 or 8 fights going on. So you could throw 20 guys in the penalty box. I'm cool with that. It won't faze me right by this point. So, anyways, yeah, it got selected to go.
Unbelievable.
And you were the scorekeeper for the gold medal game for the guys,
Yeah,
and the bronze medal for the girls. So, like, how did you get both games?
Okay, so there's 6 of us that are doing scorekeeping, 6 of us that are doing timekeeping. Todd's a timekeeper, I'm a scorekeeper. There's 3 on each side are NHL regulars. We had done a pre-tournament back in September. Todd and I get named to do the final. So it was the men's and women's, it was the US and Canada women that were playing. It was a 4 Nations Cup, I think, that they ran it as. Todd and I get the final there. On the flight home, we said, yeah, the reason they're giving us the final here is because when they get to the Olympics, there's only 4 medal games to go around. They got to go with the NHL guys. They got to go with guys that are from Vancouver or that area. They got to give us this game as a kind of here's your consolation prize. We go to Vancouver thinking that's fine. It's still the Olympics. We still did Canada's games, all of that. They had assigned all of the games for the whole tournament, making sure everybody got some good games, and you'd have some duds and mixed in. And but they didn't assign the 4 medal games. That was going to be assigned based on how you did when you were there. So the Wednesday before the medal games, we're out at supper, our crew, so all 25 of those people, we had worked an early game. The other 2 crews were at the arena working games. We knew that night that the email was going to come out saying, here's the assignments for the final, for the medal game. We assumed it was going to come out probably about 11 o'clock at night once everything was wrapped up. We're in a very, I can't even remember what restaurant, but it was noisy and loud in there. And all of a sudden, the girl next to me says, oh my God, the email's out. And literally, everybody went quiet at our table. And the discussion was, okay, do we want to know or not know? So, because we were partnered, there were 2 scorekeepers, right? So say Tommy and I are partnered together.
Right.
I may get assigned games and Tommy may not. This is really awkward around this table.
Mood change for sure. Yeah.
For sure. But we said, well, look, we're going to find out sooner or later, right? So she starts off and says, she says, well, okay, starts reading gold medal game, crew chief is so-and-so, scorekeeper, Randy. And like, I get shivers right now thinking, remembering what it was like. I'm going, wait, I'm going to do the men's gold medal game? Are you insane? There's only X amount of people in history that ever worked that game. So
absolutely,
needless to say, but of course, I can't jump up and down and scream and yell or anything.
Right.
Stay cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, like inside I was going nuts, but outside you never know. They go through, at this point, I've zoned out. Oh, and then Todd got named timekeeper, right? So this is heaven for us.
Perfect. Yeah.
At this point, I zone out completely. They start going through the other games. The women's bronze medal game is last, and she says, Randy, you're working the bronze medal game. And I'm thinking to myself, that's impossible. There's 6 people that have volunteered their time to be here. There's only 4 games. So there's 2 people that are going to leave here disappointed, no matter what.
For sure.
By giving me a second game, you're now making that 3 people that are going to leave.
Yeah.
Politically, this makes no sense to give me a second game.
They saw your handwriting, Randy, and they had to give you 2 games.
You'd be surprised, Tommy, the number of people that suggest that. So answer that one for you. A lot of people assume that. They assumed it's the really nice score sheet. In actual fact, it was funny. We use electronic score sheets out there. So it's
okay. There you go.
Relevant. And nobody can mess up.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So the next morning, I get to the arena, and the fellow who sat next to me in the penalty box he sat next to the timekeeper for almost all games. A fellow by the name of Blair Landry I run into him first. He's got this huge smile and comes over and says, congratulations. He says, has anybody given you grief about this? Because you can imagine, I mean, with anything like that, it's like the same thing with referees at the Stanley Cup final, right?
100%.
Some referees will be happy. Some guys who thought they deserved a chance to be there are going to be a little disappointed. They're going to say, yeah, that's because so-and-so and so-and-so are friends, right? That's the only reason they're working. Whatever. He said, Randy, this is wonderful. I said, I'm thrilled. I'm honored, but you gotta, why? Like, I'm sorry, why are you picking me for don't change it.
Right. No,
off the game. But explain to me why you're picking me for the final and why you gave me a second game, because that to me makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, do you remember the Swedish Canada women's game? Now, you guys, I can't remember, you guys may have heard this story before. course. I know I've told it to a lot of people. And I said, yeah, about a week ago, right? Canada had beaten Sweden. I think it was 7-2, if I'm not mistaken. And he says, do you remember the second Swedish goal? And I stopped for a second. I said, was that the power play one in the second period? He says, yes. And I said, okay, wait a second. Now, to give you guys, you guys know hockey, so this should make a lot of sense. You'll appreciate this part. Early on in the tournament, I have a headset while I'm working the games, and the referee is hooked up to my headset. Their only job when they're on the ice is to give me the goal score. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm listening. They give me the goal score. That's great. The guy who's next to me, Blair, has a headset on with the spotters upstairs. They're giving him the assist. Early in the tournament, I said to Blair, "What do I need to do to what can make your job easy?" And he said, "Randy, if you can give me as much information accurately and as quickly as possible, I will love you to death."
Right.
I said, "Like what?" And he said, "Well, I tell you what, if you can give me goal and assist right away, I'm going to be thrilled."
Right.
And I said, so I had grown up learning how to do that. It was something I picked up over the years,
right,
going back to my days in Kingston. And I thought, wait a sec, I can absolutely do that. Okay. So go back to this Canada-Sweden game. The power play goal, we're sitting at center ice. I'm looking off to the right, so we get a great view from the blue line looking in. Canada's goalie is at that end. The play goes, it's a pass from one defenseman to the other, shot towards the net, girl in front tips the puck, it goes into the net. The referee, they were using one referee only for the women's game. He's in the corner. He gives me the number of the defenseman. So 5, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I immediately said, no, 8 from 5 and 2. And Blair says, are you sure? And I said, 8-5-2. So he goes with that. He types it in right away. And it's important because that information is immediately being fed to the broadcaster.
Right.
They don't want mistakes, right?
No.
They don't want to have us throw something up on the screen that says, everybody at home is going, are you guys stupid? That puck was deflected. How could you not?
Right.
Right.
So you want accurate, but you want it as quick as possible. So he types it in right away. I could see the referee was blinded to the girl in front. He couldn't see the tip, right? So I said, well, Blair, that goal, you were sitting next to me. You saw the same thing I did. That wasn't a tough one. That was one of the easier calls we had to make. It was tic-tac-toe, tip in front. He says, absolutely. He said, how did you know the girl in front was number 8? And I stopped for a second. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, Randy, she was looking right at me the whole time because we're directly in line with the defense. The puck comes in. She's facing us. She tips the puck. She lifts her hands. Everybody came to her. At no point during that entire process did she ever turn around. Her number's on the back of her sweater. I said, oh, you know what? You're right, but it's so-and-so. And she's about 2 inches taller than any other player on the Swedish team. They always parked her in front of the net. Every single power play. That's where they played her. And he said, and so that's how I knew right away. I didn't even have to see the number. I knew it had to be number 8. And he said, that's why. He said, I said, I assumed everybody watches the game that way. He says, are you out of your mind? Nobody watches the game. And I said, well, I've done that all along. And he said, the one thing he left me with, because I this will never forget. When we were talking about getting 2 games, he said, we actually had a conversation, very brief, about the possibility of having you do all 4 of the medal games. He said that was, we thought your work was crazy. That much. Yeah. And I'm going, wow. And you know, you couldn't give me a nicer compliment. And he said, but politically, that would not have gone over well.
100%.
So fast, yeah. Anyways, that played in heavily to Korea, whatever it was, 8 years later.
For sure. And you got the big game. So what was that like watching the golden goal live? Like obviously you're a scorekeeper, so did you keep your emotions in? Like, what's that like for you?
Hey, Randy's telling the guys it wasn't Crosby.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't 87.
We probably saw the puck go in before Crosby did, because if you remember the goal well, he's looking right at Miller, and then he circles around behind the net. We've got a kitty corner, right? So we're seeing, we can see Miller, we can see the puck going past his knee pads, right? What was interesting there is that at the penalty box, there's about 10 of us that sit in a penalty box at the Olympics, and when a goal is scored or a penalty is given out, one of the things you do after I tell the guy next to me, then you kind of shout out the information to everybody so that everybody knows what's going on, right? Here's the goal scorers, because there's different, the announcer needs it, there's different people, right? So, but at the Olympics in Vancouver, the crowd noise was so loud by the time we got into the playoffs, the people that were 2 seats away from me could not hear me, no matter how loud I screamed. So we decided to implement a whiteboard, right? So as soon as anything happened, you wrote it on this whiteboard, and then you kind of flashed it like you would at a volleyball game, right? In a high school gym. And so when Crosby scored the goal, that was my first instinct was, now I'm going to forget Ginlin's number, 87 from 12, right?
12, yeah.
Yeah, 12, I think it was. 87 from 12, and flashed it along. There were, during that game, to Tommy's point, in order to appreciate the moment, right? Because you're never going to experience something like that again. I remember on TV timeouts, Todd and I would kind of, we get to relax a little bit when there's obviously no action going on. When we go to the TV timeout, we just kind of sat back and said, oh my God, take this in, because the crowd would go crazy. They would, like, it would just be off the charts loud. And you just kind of absorb it and think, you're here working an Olympic final, and not only an Olympic final that will go down as one of the most classic.
100%.
The best. Yeah.
Probably the best. One of the best.
Oh.
Probably. 100%.
Yeah,
Because all the best talent is there, right? Too. Like, you haven't seen that in the last since that Olympics.
Everything about it, right? It was just, you couldn't have scripted that any better. If I could have wrote the story and said, okay, as a Canadian, how would I like this to play out? Yeah. So anyway, needless to say,
unbelievable.
Yeah, absolute highlight.
Yeah, unbelievable. And then you get to go to Pyeongchang, like you said. So how was that? Obviously, you go from being in Canada, the home crowd, now to totally different atmosphere. And I believe that was the year where no pros were allowed to go. So how was that adjusting to that kind of difference?
Yeah, it was, you know what? I think I ended up appreciating it more because of that, Alex, because it was it was still special, but in a different way. I think if it had been sort of identical to Vancouver, there might have been a little bit of a feeling of, I won't, like, same old, probably isn't fair, right? Because it's still the Olympics, but it would have been, I've been there, done that. This one provided, being in Korea, which obviously I never even been close to visiting, that part of the world.
Right.
The people were incredible. A lot of the crew that we worked with were young Koreans. So that made it fun. You got to know them a little bit. And because the pros weren't there, I found it was a much more intimate setting. Like, we were able to interact with the players an awful lot more. It was easy to get towards the dressing rooms and everything. In Vancouver, it was surprisingly a lot more security. And people find that funny because they assume that when you're only, an hour from North Korea, the security must have been off the charts. It wasn't. Like, honest to God, we get to the arena, we go through something that looks like the metal detector at the Sudbury Airport, and then you're allowed in. That was, you're going, like, shouldn't there be people with machine guns here? Apparently not. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience. It was different altogether. In Korea, there were only 2 of us that were scorekeeping. So they brought myself over and a fellow from Ottawa. He had the men's rink, I had the women's rink, but because there's more men's game than women's game, I would get, the overflow over at our rink. We were guests of the international ice hockey, which is like they put you up at a resort. The food was unbelievable. We went out, got to meet a whole bunch of really cool
amazing
people. So, yeah, different experience, but equally as special. And then got to see opening ceremonies in Korea, which
amazing.
Did not get to see in Vancouver. Like, to be there live is phenomenal.
For sure. Did you get a chance to talk to former Wolf Eric Odell at any chance there when he was down in Korea?
Funny, I did not get a chance to see Odell. I got to see both Kahun and Kubalik.
Yeah.
And which was interesting because I remember sending something back to people. I actually saw Germany. You remember Germany had a really good run in those ones.
Great run.
Kahun was incredible. And I remember sending something back to some friends saying, this guy should be playing NHL hockey. And,
and sure enough, there you go. Unreal. That's awesome.
I did see Rebecca. Got a chance to talk to Rebecca. Got a chance to talk to Katie Doyle, who's from Sudbury, the Canadian team. So got a chance to see Zinn, your professor.
Kathleen
Zinn,
she's
I was going to say Christine, and I'm thinking that doesn't sound. Yeah, she happened to be over there.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Amazing. That's unreal. And it's funny. I actually got to see you live in action 2017 World Juniors. Canada, Slovakia, your scorekeeper. Yeah, Randy, what's going on? I was yelling at you. Yeah, it was awesome. So it was good to see in action. How was the World Juniors?
Was that, by the way, was that the game that the buzzer, they go to drop the puck at one point?
That's the one. That's the one. Yeah.
That's one of my, so the interesting thing about all of these different tournaments is there are a million and one. It's part of why I have trouble when I do presentations to kind of keep things condensed, because I can
Right.
go so many different directions.
Yeah.
So I'm working the clock at the Canada Slovak game, right?
Mhm.
And there's a goal that's scored, and they go to drop the puck, and as they drop the puck, you hear the horn come on, and Lisa Connor, who is from, that's Brock Connor's older sister, who's from
Yeah.
Sudbury,
Yeah.
I'm on the score sheet, she's working the clock. And they look, of course, everybody looks over, and she goes, honest God, like, I didn't hit the horn. And I'm getting texts going, like, what the hell are you guys doing? Right, from my daughter in Kingston, who's watching the game with her Queens friends, going, like, is there something wrong? And so the referees come over, and we said, like, we don't know. So they go back to do it again. Same thing happens again. Now we're going, okay, like,
I
you're
remember
feeling
it all.
the right? And the referees come over, and as the referees came over the second time, we get a call from upstairs. The referee in chief upstairs informs us, hold on, guys, we're still reviewing the goal. They forgot. And instead of calling down and saying, because we would always hold the officials off, right? They would look at dropping the puck, because we were synchronized with TSN. So we could have held them off. Nobody told us that they were still reviewing. So, but they thought, well, the only way we can get their attention down there is to hit the horn. Well, thanks a lot. Next time, do you think maybe you could just call down? So World Juniors were incredible. But I think my the one disappointment I had out of World Juniors, when you're doing either the score sheet or the clock, you don't get a lot of television time because of the way the cameras are set up. So there's one directly on top of us that points out towards center ice, right? That's in line with the red line, but it really doesn't pivot back to look down on the scorekeeper. If you want to get a lot of airtime working the penalty box, do the door opening. That's where you get, right? That's where you get,
right.
Lo and behold, because I had already worked those games in Vancouver, in Toronto, when Canada played Russia, I'm going to say, I think it was 2015. I'm on the door. I'm thinking, this is going to be wonderful. Everybody's going to see me. I'll be sitting here with all the Russian players. And that was the game. If you're a big World Junior fan, that was the game. I think Max Domi was on that team, that group, right?
Right.
Before, as they're getting ready for the opening face-off, Domi and a guy are sticking each other, right? And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be penalty filled. There's going to be like a gazillion penalties. I'm going to be more popular than anybody, right? Because they're going to get the block. Russia took one penalty the entire game, and that was on the one that they took after Canada had scored a goal on the play. So they don't even show the Russian guy in the penalty box. They're showing the goal over and over.
Oh,
the only other penalty Russia took all game was the guy who got a 10-minute misconduct on the empty net goal for throwing his stick up into the crowd.
Oh my God, that is so good.
Of all my luck, I get the only basically penalty-free game of the tournament.
And no kidding, you expect Canada, Russia too. Come on. Oh my God.
But it was fun. It's a great vantage point for the game, and honestly, if you're working the doors, it's as relaxed as they come. If you compare that to being on the score sheet, or especially being on the clock, right? On the clock, it's nerve-wracking.
No doubt. Awesome stories, Randy. Kind of moving away now more to general Sudbury, because we know you're the guy to talk to about sports here in Sudbury. What's your take on the arena debate, especially with the new news coming out? What's your take overall, downtown versus the KED?
So I've always been a huge proponent of the Kingsway location. My premise, and I feel fairly strongly about it, is that I think that there's just more room to build more around it, to make it a destination. And I know people say, Randy, you're just regurgitating what Dario and his group wanted to say. I said, no, hold on. The problem with the downtown destination, I've yet to have anybody, and maybe this will prompt somebody to give me a call and try and talk me out of it, is that I'm in that arena downtown as much as anybody in the city, right? I'm there for every 5 game. I'm there for every Wolves game. I'm there for minor hockey games, for crying out loud. Right? I know the facility well. If you think of that one, even if you build a really nice brand new structure exactly where that arena is at, you've still got people coming to the same location. So when you leave the arena, your choice, I look out at the arena, I'm looking across at the railway yard. I've got Tom Davies Square on one side. I've got the Memorial Park. Okay, where exactly am I going to go to have like this quote unquote atmosphere to create like, there's nowhere to build anything there unless you're looking at completely taking out the train yard, which, okay, God, that's good. That's a huge one. So I don't know how, with all due respect to Wacky Wings, the Townhouse, Respect is Burning, they're all wonderful facilities, Doghouse, and certainly there's an audience there. But it's not the same as if you have, a casino next door and hotels there. And if you think about it, both of you guys have worked or played in some of the biggest tournaments that Sudbury's hosted. If you think about it, Tommy has.
Tell us, Cup, if you haven't heard.
Thanks, Randy. I texted him before to put that in. Thank you.
But if you think about it, like as far as Silver Stick, Big Nickel, girls hockey tournament, none of them basically use Sudbury Arena because it's not particularly practical. Whereas if you have a double pad arena or even a single pad up at where they're proposing KED, for all those teams coming in from out of town, now all of a sudden, when the kids have played their last game at 6, 7 o'clock at night, if a handful of the fathers want to go over and watch the NHL game that's on at the casino, spend a little bit of money there, it is injecting some money into downtown. Right now, most of those people go back to their own hotel, sit in the hallways and drink beer and watch the game there, which is what I would do. I was taking our kids all over the province, unless you had something right nearby that gave you a reason that said, okay, yeah, that's convenient. Why don't we wander over, we'll have supper there, and we'll go over and play a little bit of slots or whatever.
Right.
When was the last time the Wolves hosted the Memorial Cup?
1977. We hosted.
Yeah, like you would think having this new arena that they would maybe become host of having this brand new facility like you're mentioning, Randy. Like,
yeah, the tricky part there is the seating, obviously.
Right.
Still popping out at about 58, but what people forget is the existing arena still has some major infrastructure issues. So when you're talking about, the broadcast type of things, media in 2022 or 2023, that arena presents some major challenges. Even though things have been upgraded as you've gone along, it was built in 52, for God's sake. It's not going to be built the same way as
time to go. Get rid of it.
It's a good take, Randy, and I agree with you. And I think we all agree. We love it where it is right now, but I mean, there's growth, there's opportunity on the other location. I mean, you look at Barrie. Barrie built the Molson Center in the middle of nowhere, and everything kind of built around it, right? So, it's interesting for sure. And hopefully, just something gets done. Sudbury's dying for it. So, one question we always ask Randy, and I send it over to producer Mason. It's the one question we allow him to have every interview about the Sudbury Arena. So I'll send it over to Mason.
Okay.
You're on mute, Mace. Classic.
So good of being on mute. Hey, Randy. Just want to get your take on the stuffed wolf. Do you have any good stories about that? Do you think it needs to go on, move to the Kingsway with the new arena?
Oh, it absolutely it has to. The classic one is, I'm assuming you guys have heard the Joe Bowen one, right?
No.
Joe's told us on a few times. So I'll steal Joe's, and I think Rob Falls has told it as well. So Joe, of course, is broadcasting. He's broadcasting the Wolves games back in the early to mid 70s, right? And of course, there, everybody. And at the time, Sudbury had pretty good teams in the middle there, and teams from out of town would hate it. By the way, I love the Ben Goodrow Ben Goodrow one. I love this thing. That's a great take from an opposing goalie. Anyways, so for whatever reason, back in, it's over the years, they've learned how to kind of navigate that thing much better. Well, you can imagine in the early 70s, I mean, it was on I don't know what kind of clips they had or things like that.
They're still using it today.
All right.
You never know.
Sure enough, the stupid thing lets loose, right? So the clip, and what should be breaking it is it's not stopping it. So the wolf comes hurtling down into the old scoreboard, smashes against the scoreboard, falls down to the ice, and one of the opposing players who's like 2 feet away takes his stick and slams the wolf as hard as he can. And I swear, as much as the fans might have been upset at the opposing player, I think more people were laughing than yelling. So
Oh my
it was,
God.
it was
Oh my
only
God.
in Sudbury could that happen.
Oh, that is so good. That
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
Too good. What that is fantastic. Oh my God. What a
And
story.
if you ever get Joe Bone on, get him to tell that story because he tells it far better than I do.
For sure. 100%. 100%. I love that. Awesome. Okay, Randy, we're gonna move on to our segment we call the Fast Five.
Oh,
Five
no.
five rapid fire questions. Whatever comes to the top of your head, let it rip. And I send it over to Tommy Vlahos. Take it away, buddy.
Oh boy.
Okay, here we go, Randy. First question. This one's easy. Dream travel destination.
Oh, Australia.
Okay. Favorite SPAD prof.
Tony Church.
Okay. Most interesting person you've ever interviewed.
Sebastian Dam.
Oh, I like
okay.
nice. Good.
Okay.
Follow up on that one.
Okay. Best coworker over the years in the media from Sudbury.
I gotta defer to Ben Leeson because
Okay. Perfect. And then obviously last question, favorite Sudbury restaurant.
Ooh. Tom, I gotta go with Tommy's not here because my son works there. So
Okay. Nice, Randy. Yeah.
get a
Okay.
little plug in there for him. So.
I love it. P&M's has dominated that question, so I like you changing it up. Good
Well,
stuff.
and, now Junior and Leslie are gonna hate me, so I
I'll
won't
have
be
to-
able to go back in. No, their roasted red pepper soup takes the cake, though. That's
for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
for
you
sure.
gotta go there for that. And
100%.
interesting, Sebastian Dam.
Yeah.
Because he was only in Sudbury for about a year and a half. One of the most fascinating interviews. That kid is so So he's the Danish goalie who comes over to Canada to play as an import, blah blah blah. And he happened to be the goalie the year the Wolves went on the unbelievable run,
Right.
07 when they make it to the final. We start off talking a little bit of hockey, and somehow we morphed over into something. Got talking is about food. And I said, oh, do you, are there any Danish? He says, oh my God. So he starts going on about all these Danish. And so I thought, well, okay, what about how about music? Well, this kid you could throw him any direction you want. It turns out at least one of his parents, if not both parents, are teachers. So he had traveled a lot. He'd been around a lot. He was just really interesting. Nick Foligno might be the other one that I love talking to Nick because he's very candid.
Oh,
and he's very Nick is what you see and get. He doesn't get too worried about whether I'm saying what I think I need to say. I'm telling you how you ask me the question. I'm going to tell you how I feel. Right?
Yeah,
and,
100%.
That's nice.
Yeah, awesome. Wow, awesome. Well, what an interview. This has been an absolute treat. On my behalf of myself, Randy, I've known you for a long time. You covered me U9 soccer. We called soccer games together, been through it all. So I appreciate everything you do for sports here in Sudbury. Without you, we wouldn't have a lot of the great story pieces. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. We can't wait for the people to listen to this one. So thank you so much. I'll send it over to Tom here.
Yeah, long overdue, Randy. Like we mentioned, I understand that Alex was, talking to you. Even when we were at the SMHA office, we wanted to get you on the podcast.
We
So
talked about it. Yeah.
long overdue is the right way to put it. And I'm actually really excited to see what you got next. Maybe 2022 Olympics. We'll see if we'll see what's in the future for you. But obviously, we have to get you back on because I think we can obviously talk for a few more hours.
All day.
The
Sure.
in person's a lot better than the Zoom, Randy. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely. Anytime. And keep up the great work. And if you ever, as far as contact information, if there's somebody that you really feel that you want to get on that, I might have contact for, don't be afraid to reach out. I am definitely going to send you Danny McCourt because this medium is made for Danny.
Love it. I love it. Awesome. Let's do it. Awesome. Thanks so much, Randy.
Okay. Take it easy.